Hello, everyone. Welcome in. That's some planning derangement because of the stress of Easter and all the craziness going on with my Easter weekend. But we managed to get this live stream out. So with me, I have Christopher, who is a member of our little group here, particularly on the Discord, but also very helpful during the live streams. You've probably seen him before on the Piratey live streams, and he wanted to talk about music in particular. And Christopher, why don't you outline what it is you want to talk about and explore?
Well, there's a statement you've made that um, guitars should not be in churches next to altars, and that the instruments that are appropriate are things like bells and pipe organs and the human voice. And I think that's a thing that is not self-evident to everybody, and so it's worth exploring.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
that's
I
the beginning
Yeah,
of this here.
I am always puzzled by this. I'm always like, so hearing a harp or a human voice um, doesn't make you think of higher things. It doesn't draw your attention upward, and I suppose that's because a lot of people don't know what their attention's drawn towards, right? Um,
Yeah.
and so I think that's more what it is. Like people are, I think partly because we're psychologizing everything, right? So we're putting everything in the individualistic psychology frame, and we're trying to apply it to ourselves. Psychology isn't actually supposed to be applied to yourself. You're only supposed to apply psychology to others, preferably people that you have or develop some kind of a relationship with in person. But I think because we're psychologizing all the time, because we're trying to quote understand ourselves, which is a little ridiculous. We're not paying attention to and observing ourselves. And I think if you observe how you're feeling and what types of things you're thinking about when you hear certain instruments, you're going to find that certain instruments draw you upward and outward, and certain instruments sort of keep you where you're at, like they keep you focused. That's what I use music for a lot in my life. And certain things drag you down, right? Like there's depressive music. I had a excuse me, a good friend and former roommate at a couple places actually. Um, he used to listen to I don't know if you're familiar with this band. Almost no one is. When he was really depressed, he'd listen to the Swans. And if you ever hear the Swans, which I don't recommend you ever do, you you will likely think of suicide because the Swans just the most horrifically depressing sort of sound. And he did it on purpose. I mean, one of the reasons why I really like him is because we both have kind of like the same method. Like, yeah, you can use music as a tool to bring yourself out of a situation. So you tune the music down to your mood, right? And if you're depressed, the Swans is definitely. Although hopefully you're not that depressed ever in your life, but some people are. Uh,
That
and then you get happier and happier music. So one of the things when I was homeless and living on someone's floor, basically in their room, and multiple rooms. This other guy was one of them actually. So uh, we were like the three amigos there. Um, he just played The Wall all the time. Like Pink Floyd's The Wall all the time. He played The Wall all the time. Like as in when we were asleep, The Wall was playing. Like it's just actually all the time. And then the way you knew he was in a good mood is he'd put on some YouTube. It's like, okay, well, we're in a good mood now. Maybe we'll go outside. Who knows? And I mean, I wasn't, we'll say, caught up in that, but and I had already completed my meditation training I've talked about before. One of the big reasons why I was doing meditation was so that I could disconnect that musical valence, if you will, from my emotions. And so it didn't have quite the effect on me unless I wanted it to, right? And on the other hand, I use a lot of music, so now the big joke, or the big joke a while ago, was Darude Sandstorm, which, by the way, is one of my favorite songs. I love that song. Right, with the guy going, pumping himself up to play League of Legends, I think. Whatever nonsense game. So I used to use that song, but more likely other songs. I was a big heavy metal guy. When I was working, to keep focus, right? Because I have a
Mhm.
busy brain. It's always bored. I really can't keep my brain busy. It's really not possible. So I need a lot of external stimulation. So, but you want it aligned with other things. Like, you want it to line up, and the music has to line up. And once you understand, oh, music is an alignment tool. It's other things too, but it's also an alignment tool. What does that music align to? And then you can isolate that down to individual instruments. So you can say things like a harp draws your attention upwards towards upwards and out of yourself towards higher things. You are never going to understand that in a psychological frame, because psychology doesn't have any words to talk about things that aren't single individuals. It just doesn't. I mean, we can sit there and go, "Whoa, there's attachment theory," and it's like, that's just talking about one property that you think one object has in relation to another object. That's actually only one thing, though. It's not two. It doesn't draw you. It doesn't. There's no language in psychology to talk about, like, are you drawn up towards the highest good? Like, psychology doesn't have any what science recharge would call moral language. And so
Right, yeah.
that's what I mean. Does that help it make a little bit more sense, or did I make it
Yeah,
weird?
yeah, that does. That's all very helpful. I was thinking you mentioned, the Swans or whatever,
Yeah.
and what that brought me to mind was, Leonard Cohen is someone people are more familiar with probably,
Yeah.
but in listening to his stuff, like, all of his songs are super depressing,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah. Well,
so
it's weird. Like, if you want to understand the role of instrumentation and music style in how you're emotionally bonded to a song, you listen to The Sound of Silence, the original from the 1970s,
mhm,
because, as it turns out, there was a style of music that the music industry, which is some kind of hyperobject egregore spirit, whatever, um, what was wedded to, we'll say, was, oh, this is what sells songs. And then you listen to the lyrics of that song, and you're like, this is horrible. And then you listen to, was it Five Finger Death Punch? Their remake of it, which is
yeah, yeah,
correct, because the musical sound of that is in lockstep with the lyrics.
mhm,
It's like, it's more morose and depressed, and right. And so you can tell just from it's the same song with the same lyrics and the same
yeah,
everything
yeah,
else, except the instruments and the vocals, right? They're just a little bit different. But one matches the lyrics and one actually does not match the lyrics at all. And what does that dissonance do and all that? I don't know. It's kind of a scary thing to even think about. I know I listen to hear the weirdest things. I'm not a super music guy, as everybody should know by now. Um, but it was millions of years ago, probably dinosaurs were around, and I heard an interview with Sting, and it was shortly after Desert Rose came out, and he was talking about this idea that the the music and the lyrics could match in a song, and that was very important, right? And then he goes to Africa and he does all these songs that, right? And so, but are you an instrumentalist, or are you a vocalist, right? Like, are you doing lyrics or not, right? And then what's that sort of relationship? And then you can look at different bands like Tool, which you should, because Tool is awesome, and they have almost zero songs that aren't awesome, which is kind of unusual. And you can see, like, okay, well, these guys put together the music, and then Maynard just writes the lyrics, and it's like, what? The total disconnect to some extent. And that works for some. Obviously, Tool's awesome, so that works for them. But other people go the other way, right? They write the lyrics and then they get the music for it,
mhm,
right? Famously, Stairway to Heaven was, one of these sort of collaborations, right? Where they're
mhm,
the music and the
yeah, yeah,
lyrics roughly at the same time. But if you listen to something in particular like Stairway to Heaven, okay, that's as close as you're going to get to guitar type music drawing you upwards. But it doesn't really. It keeps you stuck where you are. It's kind
Mhm.
of in the lyrics, right? She's buying a stairway to heaven. Okay. The music isn't taking you there, right? You have to buy it. Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
going to work out? By the way, no, it's that's not going to work out. So, like in the song, even though you have, we'll say, positive, interesting thoughts, and Jimmy Page is obviously a freaking guitar genius. Um,
Mhm.
you know, you get that sense of a stairway. You get a sense of heaven because you can see them on the horizontal, we'll say, like in front of you, like what that looks like, but it doesn't actually draw you up. And in fact, the lyrics don't go up. So at the end of the
Right,
day,
right.
um, and that's the closest thing you have to drawing you up. So, there's other Led Zeppelin songs that definitely draw you up. In particular, their best song, which is "Battle of Evermore," where they use the human voice to just catapult you into the stratosphere, roughly speaking, because that's obviously the best song by a rock band that could ever be made. Yeah, everyone's like "Stairway to Heaven," and I'm like, it's a really good song. There's no question about it. But also, have you heard the Battle of Evermore? Because oh my goodness, so much better than pretty much any other piece of music. Certainly in that genre, it's number. There isn't even a number two at that point. But that's because of the human voice, and
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I like recordings because just like to hear the same thing over and over again. It doesn't wear me out like it does other people. That the record they're never gonna be able to reproduce that anyway. So,
Right, yeah.
even if you hear Hart's version or something, it's like, very good, very good, bravo, excellent work. Could not do that. Quite an accomplishment. Not the recorded version, right? Which
Yeah,
is
yeah.
what you should expect. So, hopefully that gives people a little more. I mean, I'm sorry, my musical tastes are kind of limited. I like schlocky pop and I like my hard rock and I love my classical. And maybe that's the best contrast is, you listen to like Beethoven's Sixth, obviously the best piece of music that could ever be uh, created, and like you're just transported. It's not horizontal. I mean, you're transported, we'll say, fully into the imaginal, right? You're like deep in your imagination with most classical music, good classical music anyway. And you're up somewhere, right? And maybe you're not at the highest place or anything like that, but you're up somewhere. And to me,
Mhm.
like this is what I mean. Like I can just feel this, so I'm always puzzled when people are like argue with me about whether or not guitars belong in a sacred space, and I'm like, guitars belong in a sacred space if you're going to burn them, but you shouldn't have fires in a sacred space. So maybe let them get close and burn them out in the front lawn. I don't even like seriously. I
Right.
just have such a problem with it. I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be
Well,
kidding.
that's there's the thing I've noticed is that the, rock songs or guitar music doesn't really have bells in it anywhere,
Typically, yeah,
except for a couple, like, notable exceptions where I'm thinking, like, AC/DC, Hell's Bells, whatever has that.
yeah.
Metallica's For Whom the Bell Tolls has a bell in the beginning, but it's just there for, like, a little bit of contrast.
And it's a calling. It's a calling, right? Like, I mean, the whole song is a calling, but like the bell in the beginning is so brilliant because it's a calling to the square, right? And it's a calling to your death in that case. And
Right,
and
yeah.
yeah, and the good rock music in particular. So I know we were talking about Savatage earlier. I don't know why I woke up thinking about Savatage, but I did. This is weird things my brain does. Um, Savatage in particular, which has one of the, I mean, probably the second greatest heavy metal rock style album of all time, Hall of the Mountain King, which is, I mean, it's a triumph. It's an absolute triumph. It's a musical triumph for sure. It's probably as close to a rock opera that you're really going to get, right? And I know the brother died, but then the remnants of Sabotage are Trans Siberian Orchestra, right? So
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's what I said when I found out too. I'm like, "Oh, well, this all makes so much more sense," right, once you see these little threads. So, that you know, that album draws you into a mythos, right? The Hall of the Mountain King
Mm,
is a German myth, right?
right,
And
yeah.
it draws you into that. And there's music that can draw you into stories. I mean, that's a like what opera is. It's where classical music comes from, by the way. Ah, right. It's only two places, right? It's either church music or it's music to go with a play. That's it. That's where classical comes from. And then rock operas, because I was really into rock
Mhm.
operas. You know, Tommy is a famous rock opera. It's
Right.
fine. I mean, he did a fine job, and they're wonderful musicians. There's no question about it, right?
Mm,
And then Styx, one of my favorite bands, they have Mr. Roboto is a rock opera, right?
right.
Because that's sort of the trend. That's what they're mimicking. They're all mimicking each other, and they all know each other and stuff. Whatever. It's cool, right? So they're mimicking, and then you know Sabotage does this again, what I think of as probably the pinnacle of that, just because they're invoking myth. A lot of the good bands are drawing from, other situations. The thing that I like about Styx is that most of their music is very personal and about like struggles that they've had, right? Like, how does this work? Like, or come sail away, right? Is like, we,
Right. Yeah.
it's this joyful ebullient song about a way of feeling, um, and and the more you do that in music, the more you match not only the vocals with the sounds that are coming out of the instruments and the instrument types, but the more you match that with something else, like a mythos, like Sabotage, All of the Mountain King, right? The better you resonate with it, and the better the song is. And there are a few sort of exceptions or whatever. I don't know how Jeff Lynne does it. Jeff Lynne's a freaking super genius, so I don't know what he's tapping into, but he's tapping into something. Um, so yeah, you have all these ways of interacting. But if you listen to rock music, and pop is more ebullient, right? It's all this happy, sort of bouncy, whatever. But if you listen to rock music, you'll notice it keeps you grounded. It keeps you grounded where you are, which is why I used to listen to it when I worked, because I need my mind not to go in six places. I need to go in only three because that I can manage. It's not going to go in just the one I want. I know that already. So let's try to get it to a manageable number. And then I would
Yeah.
listen to whatever, to make that happen. And if I needed extra energy, yeah, I'd crank up the EDM or whatever, or any high speed music will do it. I mean, if you want to
Mhm.
blast through a bunch of work, you can do what is undoubtedly the greatest heavy metal album that could ever be, and that's Ride the Lightning by Metallica, right? Because you've got Mustaine there doing whatever magic he does with the guitar, because that's magic. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
I saw him in person once, quite by accident. I went to see Metal Church, and he was the headliner. So, and I saw him on stage because I'm not a huge Megadeth fan. It's sort of mediocre music, in my opinion. He's got some really good songs, but also, and his social commentary is terrible. Uh,
Right,
but
right. Yeah.
but I saw him on stage, and I was just like, I don't even know what he's doing. Like, I don't know what that is. That's amazing. That's so beyond anything I could imagine, right? But you put on Ride the Lightning, you get about 2 years work done by the time the album's over, and you move on with your day. Now, I understand everybody can't do that, but I can, or at least I used to be able to. I can't work at that pace anymore. But um, that's how I use music. And so because I've been using music as a tool pretty much my whole life, when people go like, I don't understand what you mean about the guitar being different from the harp or something, I'm like, I don't understand your existence. Like, I just don't. I can't even fathom how you don't see this, because I use this all the time, right? Like, you take a bath, you listen to Beethoven 6 while you relax, like, I don't. What are you doing? What else are you going to do? Right?
Right. I I think part of that there is that with the basically people invented recording music,
Mhm.
and so that gives you more access to like music being consumed as entertainment more than
Yeah, well,
what it would
it
be
also
before.
well, it's a lower form of entertainment, recorded music, that's the problem.
Well, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because with music that's played live, like, you're there, like,
yeah,
and
yeah,
there's people there, and, like, my favorite times, there I hope it's still going on, I have no idea. There's a festival called La Kermesse that used to happen in Biddeford, Maine, which is where my family's from, my father's side of the family, and, largest French Canadian enclave outside of Canada, basically. Um, and it's they would have bands down, and most of it's French folk music, and so we listened to the French Canadian folk music together under a huge tent, and talk about the old days, and and then they play YMCA and all the crazy stuff, right? Naturally, but they'd also play old French songs in French, which I don't speak and can't really understand, but also super enjoy because music, you don't need the lyrics, right? um
right.
Especially if the lyrics are integrated as part of the music. But the nice part about
Yeah.
that was you could get up and dance, right? You were there, right? And
Mhm.
even if so one year they did, which was just amazing, they did, oh shoot, now I don't remember the name of the band. Uh they did one of these '80s bands that was very, popular, but they were in the small tent, which is even more hysterical for me, and that whole thing was interaction. It was, this. That normally, I don't go to concerts. I've been to a few concerts. I've been to Metallica a couple times because 'cause I'm super huge Metallica fan. I went to see Metal Church. They weren't the headliner, Megadeth was, but whatever. I'd always wanted to see, Metal Church. I didn't even know they were playing anymore, 'cause it's from my
Mhm.
youth. These guys are still playing. What are they in their 50s, 60s? What's going on here, right? Um, and I don't like concerts. I don't know if you know this. There's people there, and a lot of them, and I just ugh. I hate lines. I hate tussling with like. Can't we all just go through orderly? No, we can't. We have to
Yeah,
create
that
chaos.
reminds
So,
me. It was speaking of lines. I'm thinking about the time I went with my brother to go see Roger Waters do The Wall live,
mm, nice,
which,
nice.
yeah, that was
I
a
wish I had seen that. I saw Pink Floyd once, but Waters wasn't with them, obviously.
right.
Uh,
Yeah, this was, but yeah, it was. I would recommend seeing that if you want to see like if you're interested in seeing Roger Waters do The Wall live in concert. It was like worth going to see.
oh,
So
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a triumph. But the Wall is very depressing music, although it's supposed to bring you out of it too, right?
Well,
Which is
yeah, that
another
was. Well, speaking of The Wall, it is like the album ends where it begins,
yeah,
and
yeah,
so it's a lot of it's depressing because it's the character Pink like sitting there playing through things over and over in his head, kind of rebelling against formation as such. Is
right, and he's stuck in his head, and it
yeah,
doesn't go anywhere. Like most rock music, it doesn't go anywhere. Again, it's a good tool. I use it all the time, or used to use it all the time, right? It can help you, but it's not making you more pious. It's not making you think higher thoughts. It's
yeah,
not making you think outside yourself. Typically, it might make you think of someone else, but that's not outside yourself. Those are different conditions, right? Because
mhm,
you as center of perception out to the world is just you. Like it's still all just you because you're the center, right? When you hear a story about someone else, like the stairway to heaven, right? It seems like outside, but it's really just an image in your head, and so that also isn't drawing you out of yourself, even though it feels like it might be. It's not, right? But you just hear a harp, and what you can hopefully notice, it might take some training, whatever, I don't know. It was always just sort of natural to me so far as I can remember. It'll just draw your attention to like the sum total of humanity in secular language, right? Or we'll say the breadth of Christendom, if you want to go with more religious-y language, it draws you out and across those things. Um, and I think uh, that I think that's a significant difference because we don't have those instruments, as readily available, and the number of people that listen to classical music has always been vanishingly small, which nobody really recognizes. Certainly not the people who listen to classical music. They think everybody listens to classical music because all their friends do, and I'm like, "No, that's a lot of people don't appreciate it at all," and fair enough, like, there's genres of music I don't appreciate, so I'm not a music snob in that way, but I appreciate classical, and I appreciate really good, heavy metal, and I love good pop. I mean, sign me up for some Tay-Tay, I'm okay with that, or some old school Katy Perry when she was good. You know, so, um, yeah, I mean, I have Avril Lavigne, no problem, no problem here. Evanescence is, see, now that's crossing the line, right? When you listen to Evanescence, Amy Lee's just said like that. I don't know what's going on there. Like that, people are like, I don't believe in magic, and I'm like, have you heard Evanescence, or are you retarded? I don't know. Like, how do you not believe in? Like, what do you mean? What do you? I don't even know what you're talking about. This is, music that can transport you. Like her voice can really pull you out of yourself. My Tourniquet is just such an amazing. I mean, all the songs on that particular album are great, but yeah, I mean, some of that music is just it's so good for allowing you to think more outside yourself, right? But it's not a church choir. A church choir
Right.
just
Yeah.
changes everything, everything. The harmonization of multiple human voices pointing upward is like, oh, you don't believe in magic, whatever. I don't know what I can't talk to you. I don't
Yeah.
know if
That
words
was.
are useful in a context where you don't believe in magic, right? Like, I don't what do you what's going on? Yeah.
Yeah. That was. Speaking of that, there in the instrumentation, it was growing up in church. What we had was you would have the people singing and a piano playing,
Mm.
and that
Yeah.
was how that was traditional, Southern Baptist kind of small church Southern Baptist kind of setup there.
Yeah.
Because,
I
and that's kind of, well, I'm thinking of the piano as kind of like a flattened harp kind of thing.
yes.
You turn on its side and play it by hitting the thing with a hammer instead of plucking the string.
Well, and an organ is a little bit different, and a pipe organ in particular, like,
Right.
this is what confuses me. Listen to a piano, and I love pianos. I still can't play piano. I can play one thing on the piano. Uh, listen to a listen to an organ, and then listen to a pipe organ. And, like, the same thing, have the same thing played if that helps you for contrast,
Mhm.
and pay attention to your emotions, and you're gonna realize real quick why guitars suck and why drums are no good. And, I mean, they're good in their context. They're just not good in a church where you should be thinking and looking and feeling higher, right?
Right. And
That's the
well,
difference.
yeah.
I mean, everything has
Also,
its place,
yeah.
right? That's
Yes.
that's important. Unlike what Kanye did with his latest video, by the way, where everything is okay in the church all of a sudden because
Right.
Kanye,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
flattening of the world. And I know he did that for a reason. I may or may not do an interpretation video on that after Jonathan Pageau's whatever that was. 'Cause I'm like,
But
"What?
yeah.
No?" It's like, wrong. Actually wrong, no way. But I think and I do think, in my opinion, it is part of the video that, like, no, some things don't belong in a church. You can't just take the things from the outside and put them in the church. You can't do that. There are some things that need to be excluded, and it's probably high heresy in Protestant land, but also I don't care, and you're wrong because sacredness has to exist, and if there's no boundaries, there's no sacredness, and if there's no sacredness, what are we doing? Like, what's
Yes.
even happening? Right.
And I think part of what you helps people go along with that blurring whatever is that with the electric guitar and also like synthesizer keyboard things, you have instruments trying to mimic other instruments.
Right. Right. It's an
So
abstraction. Right. Right.
you
And
get
that's why we like Eddie Van Halen. He's not trying to he just kind of just trying to figure out how to play the thing and didn't know and didn't have lessons. And so he invents a new sound from the guitar, right? Or I know Page wasn't the first to do it, but the bow and the guitar,
mhm,
and actually, I think Whitesnake did it better. I'm a big Whitesnake fan. I think Whitesnake did the bow better with the guitar. And so I think, yeah, once you engage in the observation of yourself, understanding that there are certain emotions that are being elicited, certain ways of orienting that the music is affording, and in some cases, forcing you to see. Did, did you can sort of, and it's part of it's the way I tell the story, which is deliberate. You can sit there and say, well, Mark, you do this meditation so that you could detach, so that you could listen to Metallica or Tool or whatever without you know without getting swept up in the music, is effectively the best way to say it, colloquially we'll say. um but that's like a big deal, because if you don't do that work, and it was a lot of work, it took me a long time, like a lot. And I'm a nutcase, so that was daily, multiple times per day, daily practice for me. Somebody reminded me back when they knew me, they were like, "You used to meditate 4 times a day," and I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I guess I did." That's because I'm a crazy person, especially when I was young. I was complete man, if I did something, it was done, and that was it. And I didn't do anything until it was done, like, I was complete nutcase. Um, and I could do more than one thing at once while doing that, which,
mhm,
made me completely dangerous. Um, but if you don't realize that you're getting swept up in the music, then it's like an issue. And here, Gustav, yes, boundaries must be upheld even if they are above us. Well, I would say especially if they are above us. But yes,
mhm,
yeah, I think part of the flattening of the world is we see boundaries as like lines on a flat map, which is two-dimensional. It's like, well, those are also a type of boundary. They might be an invalid boundary because we've been drawing lines on maps, putting in governments and calling it a day. And oh, look, a country. No, that's not how that works. Um, that's why you have a bunch of wars, you morons. But yeah, the boundaries are in 3 dimensions. They're all around us, and some boundaries look like bubbles. So a church, for example, it looks to us like a bubble, right? It looks like a bubble of sacredness, right? But it's not. It's a conduit up to the highest, hopefully, or at least a good church is, right? And
right.
that's why guitar doesn't belong there, because the guitar can't lift you up. The guitar can take you a long way in front of you. It can do horizontal progress really well. It can also do the opposite, by the way. It's the other thing. Like, try to play the pipe organ depressingly, right? I mean, you can do it. It can be done, but it takes some effort, right? Try to play a harp depressingly. Can't play a harp depressingly, um, right? You can sing depressingly. It takes so it
Mhm,
takes, it takes some work to point up. It also takes some work to point down. The easiest thing to do is to point across. You
mhm,
feel that every day. You just don't notice it, and fair enough. But also, you need to start noticing that, right? Because you need the difference between going straight across or back or side to side versus going down into depression or up into joy. Right? Like, you have to have all three of those emotional dimensions in order to understand my point in particular about why guitars don't belong in a freaking church. It's not that hard. Um, and yeah, and then when you see the effort that goes into like pipe organs. So when we went to Ireland, Sarah's a huge fan of pipe organs. She knows how to play them. Probably super rusty. Don't be calling us up looking for pipe organ player, but almost every church we went into had a pipe organ. She was like in musician's heaven for her because she's a keyboardist, so she just loves pipe organs. But you see the amount of work that goes into building one of those things, and you're just like, how did they even do? Forget about the church building and all the stones. How the hell did they build this amazing pipe organ? This is insane. Like, it's such an amazing piece of work. Um, and once you sort of understand like what goes into that, the engineering and the pipes and the you know how you're manipulating the sound and then the acoustics of the building and how that affects the amount of light coming in if you're in a certain certain church in Ireland that has it underground pipes, which is really cool to look at. And how many pipes there are. Oh my goodness. You see pipe organ with like hundreds of pipes. It's amazing.
Mhm.
And I think the music helps us to understand and interact with the boundaries, right? Participate in the boundaries. That's why I don't like
Yeah,
guitars in churches.
but there's also a thing of, like, everything has its place, and so that's,
Right.
a thing to consider also is, like, your target audience for the music. There's, you know, a difference between a song, like, we'll say the difference between writing a love song, like, for a girl versus writing a love song to impress your other music friends
Oh yeah.
or
Yeah.
something, so
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's big. I mean, if you talk to musicians, if you know enough musicians and you talk to musicians, um, or you you know you listen to some of these biographies of these musicians. Sometimes they'll do interviews and stuff and tell you about things, and it's like where this music is coming from is not always where you expect, and the motivations are typically very human and very standard stock. Oh, I had problems with my father, so I wrote this song about it's like what, and then like for me because I can disconnect from some of this music. I can ignore lyrics and just enjoy the, the sounds. And so I was always like, "Oh, is that what that song's about?" I had never thought. So I remember the first time I was at my mother's house and I played Metallica for her, Master Puppets, and she's like, "That's a song about cocaine," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And then I was like, "Oh," it's like, "Oh, I see it now." Right, but she had to tell me because I didn't I
right,
I
yeah,
had
yeah.
never ever paid any attention to it. I'm like, "What do you mean cocaine? I just use it to get work done." Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, if I wanna drive fast, I put on Master Puppets. I get there twice as fast as I would otherwise. Like, it's fine. Right? Like, "Oh, yeah, because it's musical cocaine." "Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. I guess I'm all in then because I love Metallica." So, yeah. Yeah, and I don't think people make those connections. Like, I don't think I don't think people look at the connection between their emotions, right,
Mhm.
and their thoughts and what they're hearing. And a lot of it doesn't have to be music. Um,
Right, yeah.
if there's a metronome in the background, it's gonna have an effect on what you're doing and how you do it. That can be used to great positive advantage for you, but you have to
Mhm.
know. Like, you have to understand that's what's happening. Um,
Right.
yeah, and I think it was Ron Cooperman actually was saying that he met somebody once who said, music only comes in I think it was 6 flavors or something, and, "Oh, that music is sex," and I was like, "What are these categories and what goes in them?" I'm fascinated, and he didn't remember. I was like, "Damn it, why?"
Yeah, that
I
that
wanna
that
know. This is good because you get a sense for that. You get a sense for, like, this music sounds like it gives me these sorts of emotions about this,
mhm,
right? In the same way that sounds, impact you be like, some people can't sleep without white noise,
mhm,
right? And so sound as a signal is super important. What sounds are around you? What do you hear? I live in the woods, but unfortunately, this is like the sole road in and out of a bunch of places, and people tend to go really fast around here, and they have really loud cars, and they're playing their thumpy thumpy music, and I can hear it even though I'm not
mhm,
like I'm a good distance off the road, but it doesn't help. And so we're constantly bombarded by goofy sounds, and even the brick house can't keep them out. Um, but if you're walking in the woods and you're able to hear yourself better, or listen to the birds, which I can do pretty easily by going outside because there's always birds outside. Um,
mhm.
'Cause I have a little section of woods here on my 12 acres. That has a different effect on you. I think most of things like outdoor meditation, walking meditation that John Vervaeke talked about, and things like that, most of the magic is actually happening as a result of your mind not only quieting, but becoming tuned sonically to nature again, where you're out there listening to things. And I think, you know, when you tune to nature, one of the things that happens is the philosophical minded thinking, where people are like trying to work out, like, well, when Plato did Plato's allegory of the cave, what was he getting at? And we're going to talk this through. The reason why I don't have to talk stuff like that through is because I spend time in nature, and it just comes. You don't need to think about it, actually. You don't need to like turn your mind towards Plato and go, what was he thinking? Like, what what is the change? What did the change represent on the people at the, you don't need to. The obviousness of the hierarchy and your place in it just happens as the result of being out in nature. You don't need to think about it and put it into language and try to flatten it with propositions. And I think the with music in particular, like all things, when you squish it, it gets flooded, right? And so we're awash in music, like technically. There's
Mhm.
just too much music. We don't know what it's doing to us. We're hearing it and listening to it constantly, right? A few years ago, I don't know if this is still a trend, but there was a trend of, wow, did you ever watch a movie with with no music? And they had people
Mhm.
stripping the music, just the music out of the movie. And you don't feel the same way about the movie. The movie's not as good, right?
Right, yeah, you either do it without the music or you watch it with different music,
Right,
and
right, that's the other trick. Yep. Yeah, and then I don't think people understand what that means. Like, what does that mean? It doesn't mean, "Oh, you can swap the music and get different results out." No, that's actually not what it means. What it means is the experience that you're having requires, in order to have depth, other components. And so, um, I don't know. I think I've mentioned this on the Friday live streams, but I've been doing this 1980s thing. So I'm watching Airwolf and Stingray, two of my very favorite
Mhm.
shows. They're just so much fun. And I'm a big story guy. I'm a writer, among other things. Um, and so I'm big on, is this a good story? These stories are awful. I mean, not all of them, but like some of them are truly terrible. I don't care. Best Airwolf episode ever, even though it's completely dumb story. Why? Because it's got a cool helicopter. See the freaking helicopter, man? It's got awesome, like next level music. Next level music, right? And the actors are good, for the roles that they're in. Like they wouldn't be good at
Mhm.
any role, but they're really good for the roles that they're in and the way they're playing it. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, probably for worse, knowing America,
Mhm.
American actors and actresses tend to focus on beauty, right? We tend to go for beautiful, pretty, pretty, pretty people, right? Whereas if you
Mhm.
watch a British TV show, for example, it's some pretty average looking people in those shows. You might have one or two like slightly above average, but almost everybody in American TV and movies is like top tier, right, in terms of looks.
Right,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah, and the British shows focus more on actual good acting, which we kind of ignore here in the States. Who cares? As long as they look good, it'll right. And you can get away with that because if you have good enough music, right, and you have good enough, draw. It might be technology. It might be like one thing I really appreciate about the new Dune stuff is the landscapes are amazing, right? The
Oh, yeah,
cinematography is
yeah.
fantastic, right? So cinematography is another signal that gets in there. So you've got the music signal, and then sounds, which are separate from music, because music is like organized sounds. Music has all these qualities to it um,
Mhm.
that mere sound does not, right? And clusters of sound also do not, by the way, in the same way that prose and poetry are different things. Music and sounds are different things, and music can be composed of sounds, but if it doesn't have certain qualities, it doesn't music. Like it doesn't
Right,
get
yeah, yeah.
right.
That's, another thing that's the meaning is content plus context,
Right.
and that I was thinking about that because I remembered Eddie Izzard talking about Charlie Chaplin and how he didn't like the Charlie Chaplin stuff until he saw it done like in a room where you were just watching the black and white movie and you had the live music playing and the crowd around you. And then he got, why it was the funniest thing ever at the time. So,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the context matters a lot. Gustav's perfectly computerized music is always awful compared to the same notes played perfectly by a human. We long for excellence. Yeah, and I think the problem is right now we're living in this equality doctrine world where people are trying to make everything equal. And so they're not feeding us the contrast, right?
mhm,
Because contrast is wasteful. Like, why give two signals when you could just give one? Well, you give the second signal so you can appreciate the first one better, or vice versa, right? And you will learn that if you learn musical scales, right? Like musical scales are a great example of contrast, right? So you get this sound and then this sound, and you can move up the scale or down the scale. We're talking about more about that tomorrow on the pirate
mhm,
live stream. You can move up or down the scale, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's like what you're supposed to be able to do. But that's contrast, and it's that contrast that provides you with the ability to then figure out how to put the notes together to create real music. Because a
mhm.
scale is not music, right? It's just sounds done in an
Right.
order, right? It doesn't have harmony, rhythm. I forget. I used to know off the top of my head all the little musical quality components, which I barely understand because I'm just not good at music. That's an arty thing. I'm not good at arty things in general. Music in particular, I still can't play any instruments. So um, yeah. So it's important to recognize that there's a difference there.
Yeah, that's the thing about written music is the important thing is not so much what notes are written, but the relationship between those notes that are written down when reading the music.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And when you have sheet music, there's two. I guess there's different kinds of sheet music, and one's an arrangement, and then you're
right,
supposed
yeah,
to
there's
play with the arrangement. You're supposed to, in fact, some sheet music contains notes that you on your piano or whatever are not to play. They're there for contrast and context so that you know how to play the notes on the piano to sound good because you're supposed to be able to figure out, a good musician can figure out, oh, this is sort of the flavor I have to put on this note. This is how hard I have to press on the
right,
key or
yeah, yeah.
whatever. I still can't play piano, so it's just so yeah, it's those little differences that make that make things work in terms of music versus sound. But that's an art, right? It has to be funneled through a human agent directly, and the human agent has to be the direct cause of that, and in the moment, and it can't be recorded. That's not to say again, I prefer recorded music. I'm not saying recorded music is bad, but also there's a downside to it, and that's part of what causes the flood. So now when you have a flood of cheap, higher quality than average music, and it's
Mhm,
not all like that, obviously, but Led Zeppelin, I mean, come on. What local group are you gonna get that can do that, right? Or even just copying that is hard.
mhm,
you know, um, you're not gonna get that, but you've traded off folk music, right? And having
mhm,
people who actually know how to play the instruments, play them in front of you while you're interacting with other people who are enjoying the same music in the same moment. Right,
mhm.
played the same way, mistakes and all. I
Yeah,
heard,
well,
yeah, I heard years ago, I heard, my ex-girlfriend went to, Northeastern University, and, they had Keith Lockhart, who was the conductor of the Boston Symphony Orchestra, uh, conducting Beethoven's Sixth in Jordan Hall one afternoon. So she was like, you know, "Let's go," and I was like, "Hell yeah, I love Beethoven's Sixth," but I knew I was gonna be horrifically disappointed at a bunch of college kids trying to play Beethoven Sixth because I've got my Blue Label edition, and I really don't like
mhm.
the other it's that much. And then what happened was it was pretty good. It was tad fast for me because it's a tad tempo was a tad high. And then in the middle they screwed something up. But they recovered, which you know, I
Yeah.
remember that better than most of the times I sat with my recording in the bathtub. Sorry,
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
giving up my recording in the bathtub. Okay, let's be clear. That's not gonna happen. Because I don't think it's a bad thing. I think like all tools, like if you do it correctly, um, they're fine, right? But you have to do it sort of deliberately.
Yeah. That's one of the things that the mass production of music has done is you don't have people like singing work songs anymore.
Right, right. Well, I do when we're driving. I will often look at the number of miles to a place and start singing, 17 miles on the Erie Canal, and stuff like that. Because I learned
Right.
some of that
Yeah.
in school. I don't remember all the verses, unfortunately, because 'cause I'd love to do it, or, when you're a kid, you learn 99 bottles of beer on the wall sort of thing, or 99 bottles of Coke
Hmm.
on the wall, whatever.
Right.
The
Right.
wheels on the bus go around it, right? And I think we've
Yeah.
lost that, and that's actually an important part of formation, and that's why it's
Mhm.
an issue. I wanna address Gustav's. You can ping me, Gustav's, and hop in if you'd like. I don't think Christopher will mind. Do you think we need new music all the time? No, novelty is evil. It seems like music just comes and goes nowadays. Yes, because novelty is evil. That should be a hint. I wonder if that was always the case. Bass turquoise musical note. I love it. I don't know. I mean, for lack of a better term, and I'll just have to piss off all the secular thinkers here. Um, I don't. Well, I knew it was an emoji. Gustavs. I knew. Um, I don't think that life back in the day was anything but liturgical. I think back in medieval times, everything was very patterned, and people were just following the same pattern day in and day out all the time. And then the calendar was there to basically tell you not only what the larger patterns were, because there's a bunch of larger patterns in the calendar, not just one, um,
Mhm.
but also give you respite, right? So you're in daily work, and then I don't know how. Maybe I should ask Rachel Fulton Brown about this, but years ago I read an article about how like actually the medievals had a lot more days off than we do because they had more festivals. The festivals were happening all the time, and they were big
Right.
events. The whole village would have to prepare, right? And so, and I know, from decades of attending La Kermesse, that was a big deal. It would take them over a year to plan that, so they'd have to start planning for the next one, right? Right after
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
last one got done, because it was such a
Hmm.
big event, with tents and parking and the carnival comes to town, right? And then they've got to get all the food vendors lined up and other bands that's it's John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. There it is. Uh, I loved them as a kid, and they played at La Kermesse one year, which is fantastic. They really knew how to get the crowd involved. They were like, "Raise your hands." Yeah, so
Hmm.
that sort of participative engagement, based on um, based around the music, that would have
Hmm.
been, like, normal for them. It would have
Right.
been different music, like festival music versus 15 miles on the Erie Canal. Like, that's the
Hmm.
difference. But 15 miles on the Erie Canal is an extremely liturgical song just talking about going down the Erie Canal and what you're gonna meet and what's happening, like, it's a story, it's a liturgical story about the engagement with what you meet along the way going
Hmm.
down the canal with the donkey, and it's great. It's wonderful. We don't have that anymore. Instead, you're off listening to whatever music you're listening to, and I'm probably listening to Tool or something, and who
Right.
knows what
Yeah.
Gustav listens to. Um, and so and then when we meet somebody who likes the music we like, we get all excited and we're like, oh, that's so cool, and blah 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 blah, right? But we never talk about, or at least I rarely hear people talk about this. what engagement that affords, to use some
Mhm.
verbiculae language, in their life. Like, what is it that you're being afforded by listening to that music? What are you doing when you're listening to that music, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
this was a thing that I think I heard somewhere. It might have been a Lantern Jack thing, but in ancient Greece, singing in a choir was a public service thing that you would do.
oh, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think that was
So
Lantern Jack. Yeah. Yeah.
that you've got that going on, and also because one of the things that helps you cooperate with people is a thing, and
Yeah, I mean, if you want, like,
that's
one of the problems that we have is around cooperation. Everybody wants
mhm,
their opponent processing because apparently they, like, worship Satan or something. But actually the thing that affords cooperation is something that, like, so many online communities, uh,
mhm,
either get together or stay together around musical preference. It's ridiculous. It's actually kind of scary, right?
right.
And
Well,
it
that's
really is a glue that can hold these things together,
mhm,
irrespective of the goal, which,
and
obviously, if you
that's why
read
you
my
have
wonderful book,
mhm,
right, you would know that's a corruption. You should worry about the aim. Uh, right. But
mhm,
the music really can bind things together. But the question is, what's it binding and what's it pointing to? What is the affordance of that music? And when you don't have a sense of that, I would say now you have a problem. You have like an actual issue, because you don't know what you're being pointed at, and you
right,
don't
yeah,
know, right? And then the power of that binding, is very persuasive to you because you're looking to get together. But something like 15 miles on the Erie Canal, and there's some YouTube recordings. You can pull those up, in the audience if you're interested in those. Um, that can really put you in a position where, you're able to cooperate with people who kind of suck. Because I don't know if you met people,
mhm,
but a lot of people kind of
yeah,
suck,
right.
and everybody sucks in some way.
Yeah, I was thinking that's why they have the military marching cadence
Right.
stuff. 'Cause I was thinking about that recently. Remembered that they had the Chuck Norris one marching cadence. So that
Yeah.
was
Yeah, that's a good
you
that's a
have
good find. Oh, and that's why we like a marching band, right? Because
right, yeah,
there's a physicality that gets acted out, within or through, the music itself, right? And that physicality, allows people to, um, have an experience that the mere recording of the big band music, doesn't convey, you know. And
mhm,
even people who will say aren't participating, because suppose you're at a football stadium and you're just kind of hanging out, they feel like they're participating because the marching band is there, right? And also, just I already brought up Peugeot a little bit on a silly, misinterpretation of Kanye's video. Um, you know, that's a liturgical participation, and the people that are in the marching band, the people that make up the marching band, are typically the margins. They're the marginal people. Like, yeah,
mhm,
geeks and freaks, right? And yeah, you're not hanging out with the theater people or the band people or the right, because they were the outliers, at least when I was in high school. And that was like a big deal status wise, to have that sort of engagement, um, because you were at the bottom, you were in the margin,
mhm,
you're at the bottom. But also you were the one affording the cooperation of the people, and there's a
mhm,
certain adoration, and maybe for you as a quote individual, or a single
mhm,
person, there's no such thing as an individual. Um, that was just your love of music, or your love of theater, or your love of art, or wanting to be as artsy as possible, whatever, right? And that's a form of nonconformity in and of itself, but it's being, sort of shaped and formed into, uh, participation and conformity with all the people that, kind of in other contexts would reject you. But it's hard to
Mhm.
reject the band geek when he's on the field marching in lockstep with everybody else and playing his instrument. Like, it's just
Mhm.
difficult to reject something like that. There's no
Yeah.
because it's not a person anymore, right? It's, for lack of a better term, in the secular, it's an egregore, it's a hyper object.
Well,
It's
what
now
you have
not persons.
what you have is you have people have a place in the hierarchy, and you're doing something that's not purely efficient. You've got
Right.
multiple things going on.
Well, and you're hurting cats to some extent. I mean,
Yeah.
band and theater
Yeah.
people tend to be horrifically disorganized, with a few exceptions for sure, because there are always exceptions, but
Right. Oh, yeah.
yeah,
Musicians are incredibly disorganized about what they're doing most of the
they're a
time.
mess. Right,
Yeah.
they're a mess. And
It's
then, like, somehow, miraculously, seemingly, they come together, and they come together and are brought together in such a way that brings other people together for something higher. It's a weird flip if you wanna think of it in
mhm.
Piagettian, terms. It's a strange flip at some level. Right, and it's different from we'll say the interaction of the marching band on the field is different from the interaction of the marching band in a parade. Because on the field, they do, different fancy things, and they're much more elaborate, they have more space, right, they can be larger, but they can also do weird, symbolic sort of engagements that don't make any sense on the street where you're looking at them at street level, right, which again, you need parades are good, but it's nothing like sitting above a marching band in the stadium, looking down at the wondrous creation that is the marching band, right?
Mhm. Yeah, the orientation of parades is kind of interesting here, because you can look across at a thing, whatever, you got the marching band thing, and then there's the Macy's Day Parade where you're looking up at the
Yep.
things, and
You're looking up at the skyscrapers. You get to appreciate the skyscrapers. I mean, that's one of the enchantments that got Ayn Rand, right? It's
mm,
sort of famous. She lands in New York City and she's looking up, and then you read the Fountainhead, and you're like, oh, well, we know where this came from. It's 100% clear. She didn't have to go far out of her imagination for this. She just landed in New York City and saw skyscrapers and went, aha, this is the pinnacle of human achievement, which, in case anybody's not aware, is not. It's definitely not. I like me a good skyscraper, but also, and it's definitely looking up, but is it looking high enough? Because I get questions. Very materialistic,
right,
right?
yeah,
Very
yeah.
materialistic. That's why it's objectivism. See my live streams on this topic. Uh, they will enlighten you to no end. Um, and so yeah, so hopefully you can see that music and instruments, I mean, they have boundaries, and yeah, I mean, you take a bow to a guitar, or some of the things Jimmy Page does with the guitar definitely sort of border on looking up. Maybe they achieve looking up, but almost no one can do that. And so
Mhm.
the guitar is bounded by a horizontal engagement with music, right? With sound. So it can't create higher sounds reliably, and especially not in the hands of most people at all ever. And so
Right,
it's just
right.
not a higher instrument, and so it doesn't belong in a church. And again, like, maybe somebody does something clever with a guitar once, and it's one person that can ever do it, and maybe you could bring it into a church or something. But yeah, generally, probably almost never, and maybe never ever, because there are some things
Right,
just don't
right.
belong there. And
Yeah.
these people that want things to be in the church, like all things, like they have no boundaries. It's like, no, you're just destroying the world. Like, you're just flattening that's how you flatten the world. You take away the sacred spaces, and then, because the sacred space is the place where you're only supposed to be looking up. You're not actually supposed to be. paying attention across or down at all,
Mhm.
right? And then maybe you can't do that. It's super hard, sure. But also you're supposed to be trying, right? And that's all you're supposed to be trying to do, you know?
Mhm.
So it's okay to go to church depressed, but it's not okay to go to church depressed and not try. And
Right.
that's
Yeah,
where
yeah.
it's the work component. I'm gonna have to someday. I'm gonna figure out how to do these stupid videos. There's like a handful of videos I haven't even figured out how to talk about yet. But one of them is about this. Like, I got to do the differences video first, and then I can do the difference between like thinking, acting, and results, right? Because those are three things that. But I'm not there. I'm only been working on that for 4 years. Any day now. So hard, so freaking hard. Yeah. So hopefully it makes sense that instruments would have a hierarchy. I think
Yeah,
just
yeah.
because we're destroying hierarchy left, right, and center since a certain event, which will still be
Mhm.
called the Protestant catastrophe, no one's noticed. Like no one's. We don't even have a sense of hierarchy anymore. Hierarchy is wrapped up in the poetic way of informing the world. See the
Right,
knowledge
right.
in video. Um, and people just really struggle with this for some reason,
Mhm.
and it's weird for me because I'm just there's hierarchies everywhere. Like when Jordan Peterson said hierarchy is older than trees, I'm like, oh, that's kind of obvious. Why would you have to say that? How interesting. He had to tell people that. Well, wow, that's a fascinating thing to have to tell people. Why? Really? So yeah.
Yeah, part of what happens there, I think, is people aren't paying attention to the, emanation that
Right.
happens.
Right. It's all emergence. And emergence
Yeah,
is good because otherwise there's no goodness. And then what would be the point? So to people
right,
fighting
yeah.
the nihilism like Dr. Vervaeke, emergence has to be good because nothing comes from anywhere else. So they'll throw the emanation word out all day long, and then they'll immediately switch to telling you how awesome emergence is. And I'm like, what a suspicious thing to do. It's almost as if you don't understand or believe in emanation. Huh,
Mhm.
that could be a hint.
Yeah, yeah. That's kind of a thing, 'cause there's the emanation, and then especially at church or religious sacred setting, you have the people up front who are doing a mediation between heaven and earth.
Yes,
Is the
right. For you, right? To
Yeah,
facilitate your participation, involvement in that engagement. Right.
yeah,
It's a really important way to understand what's going on in church for sure.
mhm,
Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah,
That's it's like a portal or a gateway to
mhm,
afford this participation so that the world is a better place basically, right? Because you're like there's a job
right,
here. There's some work that needs to be done. Knitting together heaven and earth is part of that work. And
mhm,
and even, like,
it
I would
is.
even criticize a lot of people talk about, getting closer to God or moving up towards God or all that, and I'm like,
Right,
"I
yeah, that
no, this isn't about you."
yeah, that
No.
that makes the thing too, like, individually focused
Right, it's
because
individualist. Theosis,
yeah,
the
and
idea of
flat,
theosis is
and
super individualist. I'm not saying it's wrong, but, like, talking about that like, that's a side effect. That's what it is. It's an unintended consequence of knitting together heaven and earth. It's called
mhm,
theosis. But when you talk about it as a primary thing or like, "You should be striving for theosis," then you get a bunch of fundamentalists being psychotic and not knitting together heaven and earth, which is the task.
right. Well, see, because of the hierarchy, you need to your part in that is kind of like letting other people do it for people who are supposed to be doing that do it for you, kind of,
Well, you're
because
supposed
they're
to
doing
support
that in
them.
this instant anyway. Yeah,
Yeah, your job is to support them in the way that you can, whatever way that is, I don't know. Um, and not everybody can do that, right? So maybe you have to also support somebody who can't support them, who is basically a drag otherwise on existence. But holding up the people who are a drag on existence is part of knitting together heaven and earth. And so you don't focus on theosis, you focus on knitting together heaven and earth so that you can
right.
do
Yes.
charitable acts, so that you can do participation in your church liturgy, right? Like that's what it's supposed to do. And oh, Jonathan, so good to hear from you. It's interesting you call the Protestant Reformation a disaster. No, I called it a catastrophe, but close enough. We still have the ultimate hierarchy. Well, you have a flat hierarchy. God is still sovereign in all things. Yeah, but there's nothing below that. And that ruins theosis, man. Boy, that wrecks theosis. The three persons of Chile still guide and give mercy. Well, yeah, sure. The Reformation didn't destroy hierarchy. Well, it kind of did. Got rid of priests and bishops and all that stuff. And the Pope, more importantly. It merely took out the man in the middle. Right. Well, that's destroying the middle of the
Right, yeah.
hierarchy is part of the hierarchy. If you take the middle of the hierarchy out, you flatten the world. You compress it down. I don't have to go to a priest for forgiveness of sin. Well, but you do. Like you absolutely do.
Right.
That's the problem. I go to Jesus, but you can't get there. Do you guys read the Old Testament where they look at the face of God and then burn up? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Jonathan, but also, I mean, if you take the middle out of the hierarchy, you collapse the hierarchy, it flattens. And then when you hear something like theosis, you go, well, of course, I grab my Bible and I theosis myself. And it's like, that's just self-help in the religious frame instead of the psychological frame. But it might as well be in the self-help section of the bookstore or self-transformation. Now that I know there's a self-transformation, there's a freaking self-transformation section in the Barnes and Noble. I just wanted to like end my life right then and there. It's like, what are we doing? You can't self-trans. That's the dumbest. Like, do you not understand how the English language works, or is reality a struggle? Like, I don't. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Look, I mean, you've got to confess, repent, and do your penance. Like, and private confession is good. The Protestants really only have public confession, which is just a disaster. Because then everyone's judging everyone else, and that's the problem, right? So how do we get there? How do we get to the point where we think guitars belong in churches, right? And that's the taking out of the middle, right? Oh, there's no middle. Guitars and harps are the same. Guitars and human voices are the same, and I mean, you can mix them after all. They must be the same, right? Which is bad thinking, bad reasoning, bad logic. Well, part of the reason why we got there is because when you do these flattenings, right? You're making all these things equal. You end up relating you to the world directly, right? Instead of relating the world to you, and that's the difference between emergence and emanation, right there. That's the whole difference, right? What is your relationship? If you're relating from you out, which is ironic with the whole Galileo garbage nonsense that all the science retards lie about constantly because they're not good people, by the way. Freaking liars, right? You can't center the world on your perception and then go outward. That doesn't work, right? The reason why they're doing it is because emanation is a judge. But the mistake they're making is, you know what else is a judge? Every other thing. So you're judged from below and you're judged from others that are on your level. And so you remove emanation to get real. I don't want the judgment of the Pope coming down from a papal bull or whatever, or, you know, it doesn't even matter, right? I don't want the judgment of my bishop who made a mistake, because it turns out, I don't know if people know this, bishops are people too, and all people make mistakes. And really, and days end in Y, and the sun rises in the east, and gravity holds you to the earth. It's like, this is unsurprising that we're fallen people living in a fallen world. Like, it's all imperfection. I get that, but you can't do without the hierarchy, because what happens is you just get upset about the judgment that's happening from your fellow persons, and now you have war, right? That's when people refer to culture war, that's what they're talking about, right? The Protestantism flattens out, and that's why the culture war looks different in England, by the way, or in Europe in general, in all the other places, right? In the Federation of Nations we call America here, the United States, that flattening is what's causing all the problems, because now you're being judged by your neighbor. And, I mean, there's no Protestants are famous for this, right? Like, I don't think there's any no one's gonna push back on that. Come on, guys. Like, let's be realistic. And
Mhm.
that's because they don't have the judgment from on high. And, that problem's gonna happen anyway, but when your priest is able to say, "Hey, guys, don't judge your neighbor, we're taking care of it," right? Because that's part of it
Right,
too.
right,
We imperfect priests are taking responsibility for this and taking care of this in the confessional so that your judgment of your neighbor is nullified, right? Or is made lesser, hopefully, for you.
right, yeah,
Otherwise, you
it's
don't
not
you don't have a reason to change your judgment, right? You don't have one. I'm
mhm,
not saying it doesn't happen, and there aren't some responsible people who go, "Oh, I'm a man of God and I should, do what my Bible says and Jesus says right here," right? But it's very hard to do. Most people don't have the Bible memorized, and even the ones that do, you pick and choose, man, because you have to. You can't you can't
right,
contain the
right,
Bible in your head. It's a distributed
mhm,
cognition that's thousands of years old. You can't put that in your head. You're not going to understand that. That's nuts. You need somebody above you with different perspective, the perspective from above, to help guide you. It can't just be people next to you. That's useful. It's better than nothing. Distributed cognition for the win, but it's not
right,
sufficient.
right, yeah,
And I think that's part of the music thing, because people are judging guitars as good because they got a good feeling from listening to a guitar song. Like,
right,
I'm
yeah,
a music fan. I love electric guitars in particular, but I like acoustic guitars better, actually. Well played. The problem is playing acoustic guitar well is really hard. Massively harder than making pleasing sounds on an electric guitar. I have
mhm,
experienced this myself in my fumblings to play guitar. There's no question
yeah,
about it.
yeah,
Um, so th that that misunderstanding of hierarchy, that lack of appreciation of hierarchy, leads people to believe, well, I felt good and was thinking about God at the same time or something, or more likely Jesus, which is a little bit different.
mhm,
Um, and therefore, this belongs in a church. And it's like, no, like still a thousand times no, because it does not raise you higher. It absolutely does not. And it's interesting
mhm,
too to focus on Jesus, right? Because Jesus is the thing that's closest to you, right? Yes, because it's the human form.
mhm,
And so,
yeah,
I can
yeah,
relate to that much more easily. There's a face, there's a right, there's a
yeah,
history,
yeah,
there's an engage. Oh, there's all these words. People love words are the best in the age of gnosis, where propositions are knowledge, and knowledge is the highest value, right? Oh, this is
mhm,
wonderful. It's like, no, no, this is so flattening and insufficient. And by the way, it's your experience. And when you hear people talk about it, like I've had lots of discussions with people about the stupid guitar in church thing. It just blows my mind that I have to even try to explain it to anybody. And they always make a
mhm,
personal appeal. Always, every single time. That's their whole argument. Their whole argument
right,
always boils
yeah,
down
yeah,
to, well, I thought of Jesus when I heard this song, and so I want that guitar in the church, because if you put a hymn to the guitar music, it makes me think of Jesus or whatever. And I'm like, that's the lamest and worst freaking justification of all time for anything. Is your personal
mhm,
private experience with a thing. Like, the a church is
right,
not
yeah,
about you. Like, it's exactly unabout you. Like, that's
mhm,
that's the
right,
problem.
yeah,
Yeah, that's where the confusion comes from.
mhm,
Noah, good to see you, Noah. Testimonials are public confession. Yeah, well, they are. And maybe giving testimony is important, but when the Catholics and the Orthodox use it, the Catholics, they don't mean the same thing as the Protestants.
right,
They're
yeah, no,
they're
there's
not they're
definite
using the same words, and they're using completely different conceptions. Good jobs.
mhm,
Good is different from necessary. That's right. And the good is still, I think, worth fighting for, or work fighting. Well, both. Uh, yes, there's worth.
it's good work fighting, yes,
Well, you have to work and fight for it. That's
yeah,
that's also that's also true. Um, and I think that's the problem. When you don't have the extra tools of a different types of confessions, um, which again, the Protestant conception of the word confession is bizarre. It's hard to imagine what corruption of language uh, does to the human brain at that point. Um, there's no difference between a public sort of statement of what happened to you that was quote miraculous or whatever versus
Mhm.
a confession of sins, which are two
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
drastically different things. It's
Right.
not that your sin can't come out in your testimony. It could, right? But it
Right.
doesn't have
Yeah.
to, right? But it's also
Right.
not a matter of absolution or judgment. Right? It's
Mhm.
just an exemplification of an event that happened to you that maybe some people can find some way to grab onto, right? And then there's a place for that, right? And that's a flat, horizontal, necessary, flat, horizontal thing. And also, I don't think testimony should be done in sacred spaces at all, ever. I don't think you should get up in church and do testimony. That's ridiculous to me. I don't know where anybody came up with that nonsense. Um, but and
Well, of
I
course, the
understand why the
Protestant.
Protestants do it.
Yeah.
They're just missing a bunch of tools, right? And
Mhm.
and the engagement that's supposed to be happening is supposed to be orienting higher, orienting higher, orienting higher in the sacred space, right?
Mhm.
And never looking at, we'll say, the persons in the church, like never, because the you're
Right.
not even supposed to like understand the priest as a person. Right, the priest is
Right.
supposed to
Yeah.
be the priest, which is a representative, a symbolic representation of the gateway upward or something,
Right. Yeah.
and guitars can't be a
And
gateway upward. They just can't. Like, again, maybe there's some limited exceptions in the hands of a particular artist and under extreme circum no, no guitars in church. I don't. No keyboards in church. No, no. Pipe organs, harps, and human voices. Those are good. Those are good. There might be one or two others. Maybe a flute, right? We
yeah,
could probably do
flute.
a wind instrument in there. I used to play the recorder. That was actually something I could almost play. That's the recorder. That's as close as I get. Now I have a whistle from Hawaii, and I can't play that. So
Interesting. Yeah. Yes.
yeah, I could see a flute. Flutes can flutes can carry you higher. And I understand the
Mhm.
attraction of a symphony, especially a symphony based around, a liturgical or religious um, story, right?
Right. I mean, I think that's the thing is that the guitars need to be outside the sacred space, but you need to understand that the, the non-sacred space is also important for because
Right.
well, it's the Protestant thing of trying to collapse everything into as like few tools as possible
Mhm.
is
Well, and they have
also
to
what gets them.
because
Yeah.
because the sola, the 5 solas just kill right? You have to do everything yourself. I mean, it's a huge Protestants is a huge burden on people. Like, man, that sucks. Like, that sounds terrible. Why would you sign up for this if you had Cathodoxy, available? Like, why? And Christendom makes it easier because you don't have to track all that stuff. You don't have to worry about a bunch of stuff. You don't even have to worry about reading the stupid book. You can, the priest can just tell you what you're supposed to be doing, and everything will be better. Like everything be because then you
Right.
can
Right.
focus on understanding why guitars don't belong in your freaking church. Like that's a way more important thing to understand about the world than your personal private interpretation of whatever piece of the gospel you found interesting that day. Like I'm
Well,
sorry, but it is. Like it just is.
the one verse in one or two verses in Psalms that tell you to that talk about all these different instruments. And
Right. And yeah. Yeah,
but
and I think, to some extent we really are just flat out making a bad trade. Like we're trading lots of facts about the world, almost none of which have anything to do with our law. I don't Maybe just shut up about Iran. This really doesn't affect me at all. The gas price affects you. Yeah, but the gas price moved up and down before Iran. So I don't know why, like, why you're linking this to Iran. I don't even know. Like, I understand that it is linked to Iran. I just don't care. Like, it doesn't matter what it's linked to. The gas has been this high before, guys, and we didn't have a war of any kind. So what difference does it
Hmm.
make what it's I still need to buy the freaking gas, retard. Like,
Yeah,
it's just
yeah,
nothing. The reason the gas is high is nothing to, right? I don't want to worry about these things. I want to be able to just buy my gas and my groceries. And, you know, maybe the solution is second job. Like, I don't know, but like, that's more important than, well, will Iran sue for peace, or did we get a peace accord? Did Israel violate? Like, well, I don't know. That's what Trump is for. He can deal with that. That's why we
right.
hired him.
Well, yeah, yeah.
Let
That's
him do his job. Leave him alone. Maybe he'll screw it up. I don't care. I don't need to worry about that. I have so many important things to worry about.
well, yeah. That's the thing, is the telling people that they have to care about all these things.
Well, the number of
And
people that won't let you not have an opinion on something, I'm just like, are you high? Like, what do you must be doing drugs of some. What do you mean I have to have an opinion on that? No, I don't. What are you gonna make me? Why don't you come here? Come to my house. Tell me I have to have an opinion on something. See what happens to you. I'll call the ambulance ahead of time because I'm fairly sure that's where you're going. You have to have an opinion. You're gonna tell me what to do? Have you met me? No, you're not gonna tell me what to do. I'm gonna knock you out, maybe, but you're not gonna tell me what to do. It's not gonna happen. Sorry. What are you thinking?
mm,
Yeah, all these people wanting to, and that's what in equal world you kind of have to. How do you get
right,
people
yeah,
together
yeah.
in equality doctrine if you don't tell people what to do? And to be fair,
Hmm.
someone has to tell you what to do, right? Which a better way to say it is lead the way, which is
Right,
why
yeah,
you have to have what is good leader, right? And what is leadership as such. Like, you need both of those. First you got to figure out what leadership is, what it means to lead, and then you've got to figure out what good leadership is. Like, how do you do that well? What does that entail? Some of that is in my book. Right.
right.
um
Well, that's
yeah, but that's super important. And people, in equal world, you just got to tell people, you got to yell at them until they do what you want. Because how else are you
mhm,
supposed to organize people? Because people mimic things, and if they don't, right, if they don't have things to mimic, and that's actually why propositions don't work. Like, debates and conversations and arguments don't generally work on most people for most things because they mimic behavior in the world. They don't respond to propositions the way you think they should.
mhm.
And that's really important. It's not to say
That's
don't talk to people, but
yeah. The leadership thing is another point here with regards to music and singing, because
yeah,
like everybody nowadays doesn't want to be the one to lead a song or start
right,
one.
right,
Everybody's, we've got all this stuff where they're like feel self-conscious, or should be think they should be self-conscious because they're not perfect or something about
right.
leading
Well, and
something.
right, and the
And
and the bigger problem is a lot of the Protestants. I mean, they talk about this all the time. This is how I know about it because I don't know. I'm not hanging out at Protestant churches. Um, they talk about the amount of power the band leader has, right? Or the music director,
oh yeah,
whatever
yeah, yeah.
they call them in their church, like, hey, he's more power than the priest. It's like, what?
Well,
Why?
they call them the technical term they use often is worship leader.
Oh yeah, the worship leader, right? They call him
Yeah,
worship leader. He's a freaking crazy musician, probably disorganized. Like, why are you listening to this clown? Like, I don't
right.
get it. Yeah. Yeah. And so the worship leader has all this power, and it's like they call them the worship leader. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's not, you didn't get rid of the priest, you split him into two parts. Good job.
Yeah, yeah.
And what's directing that towards the good? Nothing. Nothing, because the worship, and this happens all the time in those churches. Like, the worship leader goes off the rails, has a fight with the priest, they get kicked out,
Hmm.
there's a fight, half the people go this way, half the people go that way. It's like, oh goodness, what a complete catastrophe. right? It happens all the time, all the
Mhm.
number of stories I hear about that, and I'm always bewildered. I'm like, Why are you having this? This is over music? Really? Maybe you need better music. I don't know what to tell you. You need music that binds you together. If the music is splitting you apart, it's not correct. Like, it's not that hard. Probably because you put a guitar in a church. Like, don't do that. Like, this I don't know what to like, it's right there, right? And that hierarchy of importance, what leads the way? The human voice should lead the way to
Right.
the higher
Yeah.
thing. It should aim you up.
Yeah, which is the thing about having the band or whatever, is that you can't hear the voices as well, you know,
That's right.
and so
That's
you're
right. Well, guitars conflict with voices. I don't think a lot of people, because again, I don't think people pay attention when they listen to music quite so well.
right, right.
Guitars interfere with hearing voices, like all of them, all the time, with maybe a couple of exceptions, right? And so they have to be woven together very carefully so that you hear
Mhm.
both. And that's not mere sound mixing. Sound mixing is important. I get that. Sound is impossible. So I understand. As a YouTuber, I can tell you the amount of work I do to make sure the
Mhm.
sound is okay, and it's only okay in this room just for this sort of thing is ridiculous, right? So sound mixing is
Right,
important, and
that's
there's a lot of sound mixing going on here, let me tell you. But it's not everything. Like you have to have things fade in and out, and the rhythm has to be right, and all that, and it has to match the
mhm.
voice. That's ultimately what you want to do, and you can do neat things when you don't match the voice, right? And that can sound cool. We were
Right.
listening to Devo the other day. That's always fun. You know, but generally you have to account for these things. And guitars just wash out human voices. They wipe
Yeah,
them right out.
well, it's this thing because if you're trying to operate with as few tools, you want contrast, but you try to get the contrast by creating a hybrid instead of bringing in more tools.
Right, and then but then
And
what are you right, the chimera, the hybrid, but then
yeah,
what are you following? Well, you're following the guitar, but the guitar is just leading you along where you're going. The guitar is not leading you higher, and it could lead you
yeah,
lower,
yeah.
but and then it's why I like guitars, because again, like, I use them to progress. Like, I'm like, "Okay, I have a goal, and I need some rock music to keep me rocking towards that goal," right? And the only and sure, maybe maybe I'm not feeling my best. Like, if I'm sick, I don't listen
Mhm.
to Metallica necessarily when I'm sick, because that's kinda like, I'm gonna attack my cold sort of thing. I'll listen to pop
Right,
music
right.
because I need something to lift up my spirits because 'cause I'm sick and keep me
Mhm.
moving. Okay, right? So, again, I use it you use these things as tools, that's fine. But when you bring the tools into the space, what are you doing? Right? Because you're
Right,
not
yeah,
going
yeah.
to put together a house with a saw. Okay? You may need a
Yeah,
saw to
yeah.
put together a house. That's a different thing. The order matters, right? But if all you
Mhm.
have is a saw, you're not building a house. That's not gonna happen, right? Because it's fundamentally a destructive device, and you get all persnickety and say, "But a log cabin, you would really only need a saw." Okay. Uh, sure, kind of. But, it's fundamentally a cutting device, and so you can't
Right,
build
yeah.
with a cutting thing.
Mhm.
Like, that doesn't work. You may need a cutting thing to do a good building, but you can't build with a cutting thing. So, if you're following a guitar, you're not up high, and
Right, yeah.
that exemplification is not positive. That's what I would say. Uh, not in the context of a church. It's positive in the context of
Exactly,
I
yeah,
need to
yeah.
get work
Yeah, this is the orientation of the thing where this is a space, sacred space for going higher. And
done. Right.
so you have the stuff that's designed to not go higher and you bring it in there. What are you doing at that? You know, you
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
build some you don't want to set up a carpenter shop inside a church, right?
Right. 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 Even though Jesus was a carpenter. Right.
Right.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Right. Yeah. You don't even want to bring your carpentry tools into a church because that's not.
Mhm.
maybe when you're building your church, you need to. I get that. But after
Right.
that, once it's consecrated, you don't want to do
Mhm.
that anymore. And there used to be traditions around like workmen coming into the church to do work. Like they would have to be consecrated. Their tools would have to be consecrated in order to go
Oh,
in.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
We're missing all that. We don't even know about that
Mhm.
anymore. Like nobody knows the history, so they don't understand how things used to be done in Christendom. And yeah, they've just left so many pieces out that yeah, we're and then once it's your burden to engage with these things and judge them because you flatten the world, right? Because you've given up on a bunch of tools and just copied the ones you like from Christendom. Now you have a problem, right? And that problem is your perception of the world is going to be flat, and so you're going to try to enact a flat world because when you're below something, so we'll say guitar below harp. I hope we can all agree on that. Um, you don't see the difference because guitar made you feel good. The fact the
Mhm.
harp made you feel better, maybe you didn't even notice because you don't. I mean, and the number of times people are like, "Ooh, you're in a bad mood," and I'm like, "Am I?" Like, "Really?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, I guess I am, right?" And yeah, Sally used to do this all the time. Sally's like, "Oh, you're
Mhm.
sick today." I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" She's like, "Oh, we've been sick for 3 days." I'm like, "Why didn't you tell me? I didn't know I was sick." But sometimes you can hear it in people's voices and right?
Yeah,
Sometimes
yeah.
you can the way they're talking, whatever. I don't notice it because 'cause I'm the one doing it. I feel just fine today, right? No, you don't. You're not as ebullient as you should be, or
Mhm.
you get a little sadness to your voice or whatever, or the reason why you can't organize your stupid live stream in advance is because, you went up north for Easter and then found out your aunt was in the hospital and, now your entire brain is, like, messed up and can't focus 'cause,
Yeah.
emotionally
That's right.
charged whatever, usually wipes out all your planning which it should, by the way, immediately. So you don't know what's going on, but you don't know what you're up to. As Jordan Peterson says, you don't know what you're up to, right? And
Right,
and
right.
when you have to judge because it's a flat world and the priest isn't telling you, it's just a bad time for everybody, you know? And that's why I have a hard time with like part-time, religious people. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how can this be a part-time job? This doesn't sound good. Sounds like a full-time job to me. It sounds like a more than full-time job. Sounds like a full-time job for a motivated, go-getting self-starter. That's what it sounds. If I had to put a job description to this thing, that's where it would be. It wouldn't be
Mhm.
Joe down the street who read the Bible more than I did. Like, that would not make it. That would not make it. So, and I think that's why they're confused about the music. But really, I think ultimately people do not pay attention to how they feel when they're listening to certain pieces of music. That's
Mhm.
that's really
Well,
that's devastating.
yeah, and yeah, you bring the guitar in, which conflicts with the human voice, and it's, orienting you across or down,
Right.
and that's why you then bring in the drums,
Right.
because what people do is you bring in the drums kind of to replace the bells at that point.
Yep.
So
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and yeah, you're getting close to, like, inevitably being upside down about everything at that point.
Yeah, that's the flipping thing, which some days I wake up and I go, "Yeah, this flipping talk from Peugeot is really good," and other days I wake up and I go, "Yeah, this flipping talk is not helping anything,
Right,
at
well, yeah,
all."
you have to the problem with the flipping talk is you have a danger of running into thinking in binary
Yeah,
with it.
yeah.
So
You get trapped in the binary, and you don't I think too, the flipping is just you're just recognizing it as a different type of order. And this is
well,
where
yeah, yeah,
Peterson was
yeah.
really good. No, 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 no.
Mhm.
It's order and chaos. If it's a binary,
Right,
it's order and
yeah.
chaos. And the chaos you could make into flipping if you wanted to, but that's not what's
Mhm.
happening, right? And it's constant flipping, which is completely unhelpful because you're not going to get anything done if the woke left is in charge one day and the moderates are in charge another day, and then the woke left is not woke anymore, but there's still leftists are in charge, and you're not. things seem like they're changing for the better, but they're actually not. You're just trading off what things look chaotic. And
Mm,
like, welcome to looking around right now at what's going on for the past 6 to 8 to 10 years or whatever.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's all chaos. And once you understand it's not flipping, it's not flip, 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 flip back, flip, flip, flip. It's not not in the
Mhm.
binary sense. It's chaos. It's like, oh, these people are in charge because no one strong is going to take charge and just make it happen. Right. Oh no, now it's these people because democracy or whatever nonsense system we're using this week. Right. And that causes a problem. It's the same as the confusion between the guitar and the harp and the human voice. Like, it's the same confusion, right? And I forget who it was. I was talking to somebody about this and said, "Oh, okay, well, so it's just a matter of time before guitars are okay in churches to you." And I'm like, "No, no, you're really not understanding my position, even a little bit. Like, you haven't heard a word I've said about this. This is not that hard. It really shouldn't be hard.
Mhm.
These instruments have a place, and that place is not negotiable." And again, I will claim Kanye's video there that Peugeot's talking about, he's sort of exemplifying that. Like, certain things don't belong in certain places. That's why he takes everything from outside of the church and brings it into the church to show you this is not a church. Ultimately, it's not a church
Right.
because it's
Yeah.
just a reflection of the messiness outside of it. And if it's just a reflection of the messiness outside of it, that's not a flip, right? That's just chaos.
Right.
This is why
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
video is chaotic to you, like your brain, chaos. That's why you want a symbolic interpretation, because you see the chaos and you go, "What's a symbolic interpretation?" And then fair enough, like, that's not invalid. But also, the symbolic interpretation is chaos is bad. Like, that's the whole thing.
Right.
There's a
Yeah.
lot of other messages in the video. I get that, but also chaos is bad, and we're living in chaos, and there's no reason for that. I mean, I understand if you're stuck in the Protestant catastrophe that you don't see a way out. I
Well, I
get
mean,
it. I understand.
that is the Protestant thing, is it's oriented outward to the chaos.
Yes. Yep. It's
And
a cross.
so,
It's all horizontal.
yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't orient up. It's all because you don't need to, because it's just you, the Bible, and the guy at the top.
Yeah. Well, it's
You
you
don't need anything else.
because you're not orienting up because you assume that that's just going to happen.
Exactly.
That
It
you
has
you
to just
leave it.
happen because
Yeah.
you only have the book as the bridge. You've got one bridge, it's the book, and that's it. And it's like, wow, like, let me count the ways that can't possibly work, right? Interpretation, a translation, what you're paying attention to in the moment, how good you are at paying attention, how you've been formed to pay attention to, what sorts of things you can cognitively see and not see, right? Like, what why would you watch a Jonathan Peugeot video doing a symbolic interpretation of a Kanye video if you could do that yourself? Well, you wouldn't need him. Right. And okay, fair enough, but you do need him. You're just lying to yourself about it on some unconscious level, right? And no, fair enough. Like, I get it. Like, we all do that. It's we kind of have to simplify the world, and so that the unconscious simplifies the world for you, right? But like, that's not good. Like, you're following something, and if you believe Jonathan Peugeot's interpretation, some of it's very good, by the way, but also, if you believe Jonathan Peugeot's interpretation of that video, I think you missed a bunch of important stuff. And the most important thing being that's chaos. And you can link the individual chaotic elements symbolically, sure. But I think the point of the video is the world is burning because of chaos. And I think, like, you can just look at the video and go, "Oh, the world is burning because of chaos." That signal is there. Like, that I would call that the primary signal of that video, right? Because the Bible burns when the magician. The magician burns the Bible in the church. Okay,
Wow.
we're done
Yeah.
here. Right. Oh yeah, didn't see that, did you? Right. Well, you need other people. Oh, it's not just me and the book and the big guy. Oh, really? See? This isn't that hard to figure out that this system doesn't work. Right. You need a lot more. That's the other thing. There's such a richness in, we'll say, going to church and hearing a choir sing,
Mhm.
or somebody play a pipe organ, even poorly, which most pipe organists play poorly. I'm just gonna tell you. Sorry, most of them suck. I mean, some of them are pretty good, but nah, you go to a church with a pipe organ, you're probably not going to get the best pipe organy music. But at least everyone's orienting upward. At
Mhm.
least in the Catholic world, and that's super important.
Yeah.
And you don't. A lot of them too. Even the orthos do this. They focus on having like a good choir, and I'm like, nah, I mean, I understand why you want to do that, but really, you just need a choir. You don't
Right.
need
Yeah.
you don't need them to be that good, right? You just need someone reading things. You don't need someone to perfectly read it,
Well, I mean, and having it be just a choir gives people like more accessibility to participate in it.
Right.
If
I
it's
I think you should rotate your damn choir. That's personally me, I just think you should rotate it all the time. Yeah, maybe you only rotate 3 positions out of 12 or something. I don't know. But I think you should rotate it. I think you should pretty much force everybody who attends regularly to be in the choir at some point, for, maybe once out of the year or something, whatever, however you work that out mathematically, we'll say. I think that's better. I could be wrong. Everybody should do a reading. I think that's fair.
right,
Like
that's
fine. Because you want to see the imperfection in the sacred space, because then you can see how the imperfection can still participate positively. Because
right. Yeah, yeah.
we the video game reality that we live in, because we've been programmed by video games around us all the time, whether we play them or not, it's not really relevant, right? The way people talk, the way people act, especially people who have played too many video games, right?
Mhm.
The way they flatten the world, imperfection is impossible. Like things don't work if something's imperfect. It's part of fundamentalism, would be my claim, but uh, it's it's
Right. Yeah.
it's more important than that, right? And so they don't see how you can have imperfect people. And I got news for you. I ain't ever met no perfect people. So yes, you must have a real problem.
Right,
And they
right.
do. They don't cooperate. That's why they don't cooperate. Oh, you're not a video game NPC. I can't cooperate with you, right? They don't see how imperfection can cooperate in a positive way. They see
Right. Yeah, yeah.
imperfection as a negative only, and I see imperfection as an opportunity, either to teach something, to learn something, hopefully both, but more importantly, for something miraculous to happen. So
Right.
really,
Yes.
you throw out imperfection. Why miracle? Why have miracles at all?
Right. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And so once you understand that, it's like, oh, and you look around, you're like, oh, I see. I see what's going on. All right, let's see. Noah, judgment in a sacred space is replaced by safe spaces in a flat world. Oh, that's a really good observation. Noah, you're right. I never thought of it that way.
Mhm.
Or social environment. Yeah, yeah. See, right wokeness as such. I'll just reveal it right here and now, guys. Wokeness as such is just a set of tools to replace a bunch of functionality that Christendom had and the Protestant catastrophe did away with. And this battle, this culture war battle, a lot of what people are perceiving as a quote culture war, which I still hate that term. You can see any number of my live streams about this. Um, that's just the battle for who controls those functions in the world, right? So if you think of, well, we tried to remove gravity from the world and all the planets flew apart and nothing was cared. So we had to put gravity back. So what we did was we got a group of people together. We call them the Commission for Gravity, and now they manage all the gravity, right? Because you can't do without gravity, right? It's the same thing. Like you can't do without protecting imperfect people from other imperfect people who suck and will be mean to them. Okay, fair
Right,
enough.
right.
Wokeness is one way to do that. Safe spaces is one way to do that. Oh, he said 10 years ago he told a nasty joke about a certain class of people, and therefore we need to remove him because he can't hurt those people. That's not fair. And
Right.
you can come in with the
Well,
counter argument that never works, by the way, hasn't been working, of, well, it's just a joke and you're not that person and that person wasn't hurt by it. You can do that. That's valid. That's true, but it's not going to work because they're really, whether they realize it or not, and they probably don't, they're pointing at an important principle that's not being managed correctly. And the, the,
well,
the
I mean,
correct management of that involves hierarchy. That's the problem.
But people, part of that is people need to just get over the fact that they're being judged for
Right.
things, and that's
Right.
unavoidable, and the world isn't going to end just because somebody judged you about something. I mean,
Right. 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 That's the problem. The judgment's going to happen as the result of you
right,
being here and not being the world. So if you want to know where the pantheism comes from, that's where it comes from. Pantheism would eliminate all forms, by the way. They're all the same. I know panentheism versus that's nonsense.
right, right,
It's garbage talk from stupid people, actually. Right? Anything that looks like pantheism is just an attempt to not be judged because you can't judge yourself, right? You're not going to judge, or you're not going to judge yourself harshly, which also isn't true, by the way. That's part of the reason why these things don't work. You will judge yourself. Um, and that's all it is. That's actually all that's going on, we'll say psychologically, right? In reality, they just are trying to get around judgment by making themselves the same as everything else, and then there's no reason to judge, there's no cause to judge, and there's no method of judgment because everything's kind of the same. But then the
right,
side
right.
effect
Yeah,
of that is you're not important and you don't exist, and no one can care about you because they have to spread their caring out to everything equally, and that destroys the
hmm
world. That's a big component of the cultural war too. But one big component is just, well, somebody needs to care about the people who have delusions about their gender. It's like, well, maybe, but maybe good caring is smacking them upside the head and saying, you're a boy or you're a girl, and that's just the way it is, and you need to adjust to that
hmm
because you do. It's not going to work any other way. Like there isn't an
right.
alternative to that in the world that is available to anybody, right? And that's where people get lost. Like they really don't get that. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
there are a bunch of non-optional components of reality that you just have to change to adapt to. This is
Yeah,
the way it is. Like there have been so many in my life, I couldn't list half of them if I wanted to, right? And it just is what it is, right? And guitars not in churches is one of them. There's a hierarchy to
right.
music and there's a hierarchy to musical instruments, and guitars are not high in that hierarchy, and they do not belong in the sacred space, no matter what Kanye's video might indicate. I don't get any musical instruments in that video, to be fair, which is good. Yeah, the gospel churches don't do instruments, right? They just do voice and dancing.
The gospel music is classically just voices.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some of them will do like mix it with bluegrass, bring instruments in that way. But
I love bluegrass music, just not in a church.
right, yeah,
Please, not in the church, please. Yeah, well, and it's interesting to me that so many people can't tell. Like, there's so many people, not just with instruments, but they, like, have no sense that there are things that do not belong in a church. They have no sense for that whatsoever. The idea to
mhm,
them just seems silly, and I'm like, "What is wrong with you? What do you think a church?" But then you drive anywhere in the South, and you see a gigantic warehouse, and it's a church, and you're like, "Well, I guess that makes sense." As
mhm.
much as it makes me wanna, like, just drown myself. I suppose if that's how you're confused about what a church is and sacredness, then yeah, you can't just like sprinkle a little holy water on any old building and call it a church. Like that's not. I'm not
Well,
saying you
that's
won't make the space more sacred, but also there's a hierarchy there, and you know,
right. Yeah, there was a documentary thing where these people in France were reconstructing an old castle using like the 13th century technology as much as they could
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever. And one of the things they went over is that they had the people would had their houses whatever where you got the straw roof whatever, and everybody one room everybody sleeps basically on the floor or whatever there. But then they're all cooperating to build the castle with the cathedral in it, and that's where
mm,
you get all the ornamentation and all the colors they had access to, stuff. And
yeah,
so that gives you like the proper contrast for seeing the sacred space.
right, right, yeah. Castles usually had chapels or whatever in
Yeah,
them,
yeah.
right? So the king could do his thing apart from the people. And I know there are some people around who think that the castle is greater than the cathedral because somehow all children know this, which is incorrect. If you've been to Europe, you've seen that the church is in the center of the village.
Right.
Sorry. The castle's off at the end, right? Because it serves
Mhm.
a different purpose. If there's a castle. Castles are rare also, guys. I hate to break it to you, but also most places didn't have a castle. So
Right.
no, the castle is not greater than the cathedral. Dumbest thing I've ever heard. It has to be stupid. Like levels of stupidity I could never have imagined in my wildest dreams or nightmares in this case. Um, and when you don't understand things like that, like when you try to put the castle and the cathedral on the same level, you're not going to understand that guitars don't belong in church. You don't understand levels and layers and things like that. You don't understand scale, which
Mhm.
is the topic tomorrow night on the Pirate live stream, by the way, 7 p.m. Eastern, on this lovely channel, whichever channel you're viewing me on. I will be on all those channels and maybe more. I was gonna see, I was gonna use this live stream as an experiment for a new thing, but I totally didn't. I don't even know what day it is. I mean, I know now that it's Thursday, but I don't think I knew it was going to be Thursday ever, this at any point in this week. So, it's like the idea of Thursday never entered my head. One ridiculous, override after another. Noah, culture war framing reframes the destruction of Christendom into opponent processing. I don't like, why are you this smart, Noah? That's kind of scary. That's a really good observation. Wow. Yeah, well, it makes sense that Vervaeke likes opponent processing and it of a civilizational Christendom. Well, yeah, Christendom is civilizational in general.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, and they keep flattening that to Christian civilization, and I'm like, do you mean Christendom? Because you just described Christendom,
Right.
you
Yes. Yeah.
idiot. Why don't you just use the word we already have instead of inventing new words to sound sciency, please, and super important? I owe you a big brain proposition that I just made up that just means something that we had way better vocabulary for all along. And now I'm super smart because we're living in the age of gnosis, and that makes me valuable, even though smart people don't make more money. That might be a hint. Retards. They don't look at
Right.
their own
Yeah.
data. Anyway, yeah, I mean, that's really good, Noah. That's a really good observation. I hadn't thought of that. I mean, that's probably why Pastor Paul Vanderklay likes opponent processing. And sorry, Mark. Mark's not going to like this, but I prefer opponent processing to cooperative processing. And I'm like, well, that tells me everything I need to know. Thank you, sir. Uh, well, it's really easy. If you want to put it in a binary of team good versus team evil, that makes it quick and easy. Team good is the cooperative team, by the way, guys, in case that isn't abundantly clear already. In case you're the type of person that thinks it's okay to put a guitar to church. Oh my God. I'm probably gonna have an aneurysm just thinking about this ever again. It's so weird. And scale, which is the topic, tomorrow, we're gonna go over some of this because this is all wrapped up in scale. This is
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
timing. I didn't There was no anticipation it would work out this way, but actually this is excellent timing. So to talk about this specific instance, and then I can refer back to this tomorrow when I'm doing my thing, which I have about a third of my notes done for Friday
Awesome. Yeah.
already. Yeah, I'll do another third tonight and the last third tomorrow before the stream. We'll see. Um, but yeah, that whole idea that things are different, that things are layered, that there's a hierarchy involved. I mean, I'm glad Peterson talked about it and pointed to it, but
Mhm.
he doesn't seem to appreciate it or talk about it in detail or like work through what that means, right? Like A, what it is, and B, what it means. You could do them separately. You could just do what it means to have a hierarchy. Like you could do that, but he doesn't do either of those things. He just says hierarchy's older than trees, and therefore, and top lobster, alpha male, blah blah blah. And I'm like, boy, there's a missing a bunch of stuff there. If you're not talking about scale and hierarchy at the same time, you're not. And then how do you understand momentum? Like, wow, like you're really missing all the key simple components to put together the world, which I'll get there. I'm almost there. probably got 88% of them or so. We're getting
Mm.
close. Yeah, the discernment stuff is just gonna eat me alive. So I'll have to figure out
Yeah, yeah.
how to do that. And this is part of discernment. Like you have to be able to discern that the sound of a guitar and the sound of a harp don't have any actual overlap, despite their seeming similarities, to be fair, right? The way the human voice properly implemented, even if imperfectly, uh, draws your attention up and out. Uh, a guitar can't do that. Maybe with a few minor exceptions again, but it just doesn't do that naturally, right? It
Mhm.
has to be really coerced. And you're not gonna do that coercion. I mean, you probably can't. You're probably just not that good, right? Like almost no
Right,
one is.
right.
If anyone is, and I'm not
Mhm.
closing on the idea, but like, this is ridiculous. It's a ridiculous conversation. Like, why bring the exceptions? You don't like Peugeot talks about this. You don't bring the margin inside the church. Like there's
Right,
stages of
right.
church for a reason, right? That's the reinstantiation of hierarchy, of scale and layers, right there. The most holy is all the way in one position, and the least holy is all the way in the basically the other position, right? Or the furthest away position or something. And that's important. And musical instruments are the same way. There's stuff that is closer to bringing you up and out, to aiming you correctly, orienting you in the world, and there's stuff that's further away. And that's important to realize and understand. So, Christopher, it's been 2 hours. I think we probably want to close it out.
Yes, I think we're about done here for now. So,
Why don't you wrap us up, and then I'll wrap us up, and I'll tell everybody to remember tomorrow night at 7 p.m. Eastern.
how to wrap this up then? Uh, I don't know. Well,
Was it everything you hoped for and more?
yes, there
Oh,
is. Let me. I don't know. I'll be a little bit chaotic here and throw a final bomb and say point at. There's a sea shanty type song called "My Mother Told Me," which is like this Viking song,
mm,
and so it's a song about going out and Viking. And I realized that that's just a Hail Mary for the
oh,
Vikings, for the Viking Raiders.
mm,
And I,
okay,
I think that's a parting shot that should sufficiently annoy all the people who like that song and are also Protestants. So about
excellent.
things.
I like it. And then you're gonna put a link to that on the sharing art and music section of the Mark of Wisdom Discord at some point. I know.
Yes, I
Um,
can do that.
that would be awesome. Yeah, because I don't. I mean, I'm sure I've heard the song. I just don't recognize it. And yeah, I mean, I think this idea that not all things belong in all places, and the you can have the knowledge of that without having the understanding of the right things that right, but also a bunch of people don't have the knowledge that all things don't belong in all places. See the Kanye West video, where he's trying to show you that, I think, among other things. Um, but the upgrade is not much of an upgrade, right? Because you still have to agree on a principle that excludes the guitar from the sacred space. Like,
Hmm.
otherwise you're wrong. Like, yeah, you've got the upgrade chip or whatever. Like you've got version 0.5 instead of version 0. But like this isn't enough. Like it's not sufficient. And discernment is hard. Like it's hard work. And the
Right.
hard
Yeah.
work of knitting together heaven and earth means you can't have guitars in the damn church, and sacred spaces need to be sacred. And I'm sorry. That's just and churches need to be layered. There needs to be a
Right.
nave in the church. There needs to be right a sacred space in the back. Like all these things need to be there. They're not optional. Otherwise you can't knit together heaven and earth. Right? It's not theosis is not the goal. That's just a stupid side effect that you should pay no attention to whatsoever. And because it'll just happen if you're doing the other thing correct. You don't need to worry about it. And it's those
Right. Yeah.
connections that we're
Yes.
missing. And when you put a guitar in a church, you corrupt the church. I'm sorry. And maybe it's not fatal. I get that. Fair enough. Like lots of things aren't fatal. But also, like, don't you want to strive to be as good as you can be? Don't you want to not have a fight between your stupid music leader or worship leader and your priest? Like, don't you want to avoid those things? It just seems like it would be easier. And look, guys, I'm so glad Christopher came up with this and wanted to talk about this. And I'm so glad, despite my ridiculous condition here, that I was able to remember and get all this done. And if you like this, like, subscribe. Well, we do these one-off live streams once in a while. Tomorrow evening, 7 p.m. Eastern, will be Scale. It will be related to this. We will talk about hierarchy again. I will refer to a bunch of things I've talked about here for sure, now that we've talked about them. And look, the goal here is for everyone to engage with being better. And that's why I don't want your guitar in your church, because the world needs you and the world needs you to be better.
Mhm.
I really appreciate it when people are able to do that. Noah, you're most welcome. I'm glad you thought it was an excellent stream. If you thought it was an excellent stream, like, comment, tell everybody, make your friends watch, etc. Have a good day, everybody. It was lovely doing this for you. And be well and be better.